Alright, welcome to the Backyard Professor videos. I've taken a couple of months off. It's been a busy spring for me. I want to share a selection. I think this is fascinating to see from a truly great scholar, Hugh Nibley. This is out of his book, Eloquent Witness. Nibley on Himself, Others, and the Temple. This is Deseret Farms, of course, 2008. It is volume 18, I believe, of the collected works of Hugh Nibley, the second to the last one. Key to the abbreviations forward. Oh, criminy, I can't find it. Well, anyway, it's one of his last ones. It's about his legendary passion for books and languages. Someone asked him, what is your list of favorite books and why? And I think this is fun to see. He says, first off, he completed his doctorate in 1934 at Berkeley, California. He taught stints at Claremont College. He joined BYU faculty in 1946, and he was there till his retirement. His ability in some 21 languages and the myriad of articles he'd published around the world have made him a legend at BYU, and he's very good. Here's 6 of his favorite titles. The Complete Works of Shakespeare is number 1. Of course. Any of you who's ever listened to his talk tapes knows that. He constantly quoted from Shakespeare all the time. And he says, according to Nibley, Shakespeare needs no commentary. I got started on it when I was 10 by overhearing arguments between my grandfather and Charles W. Penrose. By the time I was 13, I'd learned Macbeth by heart, and I tried to memorize Hamlet, but it was too long. Imagine something being too long for Nibley to memorize. Wow. Well, considered not only to be the finest writer, but one of the wisest men of all time, Shakespeare continues to infatuate critics, actors, theater-goers, and readers. His second book was The Book of Mormon. And he says, you expected me to say the Bible, didn't you? But the style, the content, the authenticity of the Book of Mormon impressed me. It's so full of suggestions. I see it as a pristine document that hasn't been edited 1,000 times like the Bible has. I read the Book of Mormon all the time, especially Alma. Then his third is Homer the Odyssey. Isn't that interesting? Probably the most influential piece of literature the ancient Greeks have given us. Homer's Odyssey is an epic poem about the adventures, the courage, and the stamina of Odysseus, Ulysses, as he tries to return home after the Trojan War. Everyone's wild about the Odyssey, says Nibley. It's a study of the world we live in from a crucial period in world history. His fourth favorite book is Goethe's Faust. Goethe ranks at the top of world literature. His story of Faust, a man overcome by his ambition, is a prototype upon which many works of literature have been built. I like Faust because of the business I'm in, said Nibley. The problems of learning, whether it's worthwhile. The business of being honest. Goethe expresses all that so well. Gaius Petronius' Satyricon, and this one really surprised me, is the next one. Have you ever read the Satyricon? Oh man, it is bawdry, man. I mean, it's wide open. It'll make you blush, I'll put it that way. But here is why. Now this is interesting. Moses Hadass calls Satyricon an entertaining novel of Roman life. It is unrestrained, and it is. Oh, wow, it's wild. But still soundly critical of bad judgment in literature and art. Nibley selects the work because it is the best description of decadence ever written. And it fits our modern world like a glove. The more things change, the more they stay the same, so to speak. Well, Petronius, who lived at the time of Christ, was called an arbiter of eloquence by Nero. Unfortunately, only part of the Satyricon has survived into our day. And then Jean Froissart Chronicles. Froissart was a poet and a historian whose chronicles cover France, England, Scotland, and Spain. They are based partly on what he witnessed and partly on the research. And it's during the era of the 1360s he served as secretary to Queen Philippa of England, where he was able to amass much of his information. The best slice of the Middle Ages available is how Nibley calls this. I began reading him as a boy, and I continue to read him whenever I have a chance. So it's very intriguing to see his selection of scripture, his selection of world literature, and his selection of a specific slice of history with the Chronicles. I think what this does is it gives us a basis of at least getting a start in understanding a little bit of the world literature. Now, I read the Odyssey as well as the Iliad. It's so interesting that he mentions the Odyssey, but in so much of his works on the Book of Abraham facsimiles, he is using the Iliad, the famous shield of Achilles, the description of Apollo, the sun-wide strider, the archer, the one who was killing everyone in the camps at the beginning of the Iliad. And he constantly quotes from the Iliad, and he uses that as selections to compare to the hypocephalus, the round cushion figure, figure number 2, in the facsimiles of the Book of Abraham. He compares it to the shield of Achilles, and there's been quite a few studies on various shields from antiquity, but the Achilles shield is by far the most famous. But you never saw him quoting the Odyssey much. I mean, he used it a little bit, and he used the character, the gumption, the cleverness, the wiliness of Odysseus in comparing him with different people in the scriptures. But I thought that was quite a selection. And then Faust, he virtually, from what I've heard from a few of his students, there was no part of Faust that he couldn't quote, and in the original German to boot. It was one of his fantastic favorites. So Shakespeare, Faust, the Chronicles, the Odyssey, the Book of Mormon. And Faust. What a selection, huh? So that gives you an idea of the broadness, the depth, and the ability of Hugh Nibley to constantly bring out parallels, bring out studies, bring out different comparisons of different types of literatures, and amass it all together to give us really wonderful articles and instructions for our lives. So there's a hint for us. It's time for us to start reading. Who among us has actually read Shakespeare cover to cover? Yeah, I've maybe read, half of it, maybe at the best. So I'm a little behind too, and I've been negligent also. Not with the Book of Mormon so much, though. I've read it several times, and I've read Faust. I haven't read Froissart's Chronicles at all. I've never even seen it. And I've done okay with the Odyssey. I've only read it once, but I personally like the Iliad better. And Nibley constantly used the Iliad. In fact, it was Nibley's studies that got me interested in Homer and the Iliad. So there you have it. Make of it what you will.